Russia believed its numerical superiority would overwhelm Ukrainian defenses in the Donbas region through sheer force of manpower. However, in just 48 hours between March 28th and March 30th, 2026, Ukrainian forces turned that numerical advantage into the deadliest trap of the entire war, eliminating approximately 15,000 Russian personnel in a coordinated operation that combined cutting-edge technology with centuries-old military doctrine. This was not a gradual attrition over weeks of fighting. This was a systematic destruction of 3 entire Russian motor rifle brigades within 2 days, representing the single largest personnel loss Russia has suffered in any comparable time frame since the opening weeks of the conflict. The scale of this catastrophe forces a fundamental question about Russia's ability to sustain offensive operations when its soldiers can be eliminated faster than they can be replaced. The images you are about to see on your screens will show you the brutal reality of modern industrial-scale warfare. What you see is not Hollywood dramatization or propaganda footage. These are geolocated drone videos, thermal imaging captures, and satellite imagery confirmed by multiple independent sources. The footage shows a killing field that military historians are already comparing to the most devastating battles of the 20th century. But that is not the most shocking detail. There are 3 main factors that created this unprecedented 48-hour massacre. The first is Ukraine's integration of artificial intelligence-powered targeting systems that can identify and eliminate targets faster than human operators. The second is the systematic destruction of Russian logistics nodes that left thousands of soldiers stranded without ammunition, food, or medical supplies. The third is Russia's catastrophic decision to continue offensive operations despite clear intelligence that Ukrainian forces had prepared an elaborate ambush. We will explain each of these factors in the later parts of the video. Now we must look at where and how this disaster unfolded. On the morning of March 28, 2026, Russian forces launched what they believed would be a decisive breakthrough operation in the Bakhmut-Siversk corridor of the Donetsk Oblast. According to reports from the Institute for the Study of War, Russia had concentrated approximately 45,000 troops from the 1st Guards Tank Army, the 20th Combined Arms Army, and elements of the 8th Combined Arms Army for this offensive. The objective was clear and strategically significant. Russian command intended to capture the transportation hub of Siversk and establish control over the crucial M03 highway connecting Bakhmut to Sloviansk. This would have severed Ukrainian supply lines to the northern Donbas and created the conditions for a broader encirclement operation. Russian military leadership had apparently convinced themselves that recent Ukrainian ammunition shortages and delayed Western weapons deliveries had created a window of vulnerability. The attack began with a massive artillery barrage at 0430 hours local time. More than 400 artillery pieces, including 2 S-19 MSTA self-propelled howitzers and BM-21 Grad multiple rocket launchers, pounded Ukrainian forward positions for nearly 2 hours. Following this bombardment, Russian mechanized columns began their advance across a 20-kilometer front between the villages of Bilohorivka in the north and Soledar in the south. What Russian commanders did not know was that Ukrainian forces had spent 3 weeks preparing this exact sector as an elaborate kill zone, using a tactical concept called defense in depth with integrated sensor networks. Ukrainian military intelligence had identified the Russian buildup through a combination of satellite imagery analysis, signals intelligence intercepts, and human intelligence from partisan networks operating behind Russian lines. Rather than reinforcing their forward positions to resist the attack, Ukrainian forces deliberately thinned their frontline defenses while concentrating their most capable units in prepared positions 3 to 5 kilometers behind the initial contact line. This created what military doctrine calls a flexible defense, allowing Russian forces to penetrate the initial defensive layer while moving directly into pre-registered artillery kill zones. The Ukrainian strategy employed an AI-powered system called BattleNet, developed in partnership with Palantir Technologies and integrated with the Delta tactical management system already in use by Ukrainian forces. According to German intelligence reports, this system can process inputs from more than 10,000 individual sensors simultaneously, including ground-based radar, acoustic detection arrays, commercial satellite feeds, and thousands of reconnaissance drones. The system automatically identifies targets, calculates optimal firing solutions, and distributes targeting data to artillery units and drone operators without requiring human decision-making for each engagement. The result is a kill chain that operates in under 60 seconds from target identification to ordnance impact, faster than Russian forces can react or take cover. The massacre began in earnest approximately 4 hours after the Russian offensive commenced. As Russian mechanized columns penetrated 5 to 7 kilometers into Ukrainian-held territory, they entered pre-planned engagement zones where Ukrainian forces had positioned 155 medium M777 howitzers, HIMARS rocket systems, and Vampire counter-drone systems in hardened firing positions. Radio Free Europe reporters documented what happened next through interviews with Ukrainian artillery crews. The BattleNet system began feeding continuous targeting data to Ukrainian gun crews at a rate that seemed almost impossible to sustain. Artillery pieces were firing at their maximum sustainable rate of 3 rounds per minute for sustained periods, with ammunition being automatically prioritized and distributed based on target value calculations performed by the AI system. Simultaneously, Ukrainian forces deployed approximately 2,000 first-person view drones equipped with shaped charge warheads designed to penetrate tank armor and destroy soft-skinned vehicles. These drones operated in coordinated swarms, with the AI system automatically deconflicting flight paths and assigning individual targets to prevent wasted munitions on already destroyed equipment. Russian forces found themselves in what one Ukrainian commander described as a three-dimensional killing field, where death could arrive from artillery above, anti-tank missiles from the flanks, or kamikaze drones from any direction. According to preliminary data from open-source intelligence analysts, Ukrainian forces destroyed approximately 180 Russian armored vehicles in the first 12 hours of engagement, including at least 45 main battle tanks, 60 infantry fighting vehicles, and 75 armored personnel carriers. But the vehicle losses, devastating as they were, represented only the beginning of Russia's catastrophic personnel casualties. This tactical destruction enabled a broader operational disaster that multiplied Russian casualties far beyond the initial combat losses. The elimination of Russian armored vehicles left thousands of infantry soldiers dismounted and exposed in open terrain without the mobility to retreat or advance. Simultaneously, Ukrainian forces employed HIMARS strikes to systematically destroy Russian logistics nodes in the rear areas, including ammunition dumps at Popasna, fuel storage facilities near Lysychansk, and the critical road junction at Hirska that served as the main supply route for Russian forces in the salient. The logistics destruction created immediate cascading effects. Russian units that had penetrated deepest into Ukrainian territory found themselves without ammunition resupply, medical evacuation capability, or food and water. Intercepted Russian military communications documented by Ukrainian intelligence showed increasing desperation as unit commanders requested permission to withdraw. According to these intercepts, Russian higher command repeatedly denied withdrawal requests and ordered units to continue offensive operations despite their deteriorating situation. This command decision transformed a tactical defeat into a humanitarian catastrophe. Thousands of Russian soldiers found themselves trapped in small pockets, surrounded by Ukrainian forces, without supplies and without hope of relief. Ukrainian forces employed tactics designed to maximize Russian casualties while minimizing their own exposure. Rather than conducting risky assaults against surrounded Russian positions, Ukrainian commanders used artillery and drones to methodically eliminate trapped personnel over the course of 36 hours. The mathematical precision was devastating. Ukrainian forces were processing targets at a rate of approximately 1 Russian soldier eliminated every 11 seconds during peak engagement periods. The geopolitical implications of this 48-hour massacre extend far beyond the immediate battlefield results and strike at the foundation of Russia's entire strategic position. The elimination of 15,000 personnel in 2 days represents more than Russia loses in an average month across the entire front line. According to data from the UK Ministry of Defense, Russian forces were suffering approximately 8,000 to 12,000 casualties per month during early 2026 across all sectors. The Donbas operation doubled an entire month's losses in just 2 days, and these were not poorly trained conscripts or mobilized civilians, but elements of Russia's professional contract army, including guards units that represent the supposed elite of Russian ground forces. The loss rate creates mathematical problems that no amount of mobilization can solve. Russia's 2026 spring conscription reportedly brought in 150,000 new recruits, but these recruits require 3 to 6 months of basic training before deployment. If Russia continues suffering loss rates comparable to this Donbas disaster, the entire spring conscription class would be eliminated before the autumn conscription could replace them. This creates what military analysts call a death spiral, where losses accelerate faster than replacement capacity, regardless of political will to continue fighting. The technology dimension proves equally significant for global military analysis. Ukraine has demonstrated that relatively affordable artificial intelligence systems integrated with commercial satellite data and mass-produced drones can achieve effects previously requiring sophisticated air forces or overwhelming numerical superiority. The BattleNet system's estimated development cost was under $200 million, less than the price of 3 F-35 fighter aircraft, yet it enabled the elimination of Russian personnel and equipment worth billions of dollars in a single weekend. Defense ministries around the world are analyzing these results with profound concern about their own force structures and procurement priorities. This brings us to the most crucial, darkest point of this entire catastrophic defeat. The human dimension of 15,000 casualties in 48 hours represents individual tragedies that extend far beyond military statistics. Each of those 15,000 Russian personnel was someone's son, brother, father, or husband. Many of them were contract soldiers who had enlisted in the Russian military for economic reasons, seeking stable employment and benefits in regions where civilian opportunities remained limited. Intercepted final communications from surrounded Russian units documented by Ukrainian intelligence reveal the psychological horror of soldiers who understood they were being sacrificed by commanders unwilling to authorize withdrawal. In one recorded radio conversation, a Russian platoon commander pleaded for permission to retreat after losing more than half his men, only to be told that unauthorized withdrawal would result in court-martial and his family losing death benefits if he was killed. The commander chose to stay in position. He and his remaining soldiers were eliminated by Ukrainian drone strikes within 3 hours. This is not just a number, friends. We are talking about 15,000 individual human beings eliminated in 2 days because Russian military leadership made catastrophic decisions and then lacked the moral courage to acknowledge mistakes and authorize withdrawal when the operation clearly failed. The expression you see on the faces of captured Russian soldiers in footage from this operation is not defiance or even fear. It is the vacant, exhausted look of men who survived while watching their entire units destroyed around them. Men who understand that their commanders valued tactical map positions more than human lives. Vladimir Putin's strategic calculations now face an impossible dilemma that this Donbas catastrophe has made undeniable. Putin's entire approach to this conflict has been based on the assumption that Russia's greater population and industrial capacity would eventually exhaust Ukrainian resistance and Western support. The 48 hours in Donbas shattered this assumption by demonstrating that technology and tactics can overcome numerical superiority so completely that additional Russian soldiers simply mean additional Russian casualties without changing battlefield outcomes. Putin must now choose between 3 equally unpalatable options. The first option is to continue offensive operations despite suffering unsustainable casualties, gambling that Ukrainian ammunition supplies or Western political support will collapse before Russian manpower reserves are exhausted. This is essentially doubling down on a losing strategy in hopes that external factors will change the mathematics of attrition. The second option is to transition to defensive operations and accept that Russia has failed to achieve its territorial objectives, which would represent admission of strategic defeat and potentially threaten Putin's domestic political position. The third option is to escalate through either mass mobilization that would be politically destabilizing or employment of tactical nuclear weapons that would likely result in direct NATO intervention. Each path leads toward outcomes that Putin spent the last 4 years trying to avoid. Yet the Donbas massacre has demonstrated that maintaining the current approach produces nothing except mounting casualties and depleted equipment stocks. The coming weeks will reveal which impossible option Putin selects, but the 48 hours in Donbas have eliminated any remaining path toward the victory he has promised the Russian people. Looking toward the immediate future, military analysts expect Russia to adjust tactics in response to this catastrophic defeat, but the fundamental problems cannot be solved through tactical modifications. Russia's challenges are systemic and strategic rather than tactical. The integration of AI-powered targeting systems, mass drone deployment, and precision artillery creates a combined arms capability that Russian forces cannot match with their current technology base and cannot counter with available electronic warfare systems. According to assessments from CSIS, Russia would need to develop entirely new classes of counter-drone technology and acquire sophisticated air defense systems capable of intercepting small, fast-moving targets in large numbers. This technology development and procurement would require years and tens of billions of dollars that Russia's sanctions-constrained economy cannot readily provide. In the medium term, expect Ukrainian forces to replicate this operational approach in other sectors where Russian forces attempt offensive operations. The BattleNet system and the tactical doctrine employed in Donbas can be applied anywhere Ukrainian forces have adequate ammunition stocks and prepared defensive positions. This creates a strategic situation where Russian offensive operations become predictably catastrophic regardless of where they occur, forcing Russia into an entirely defensive posture or accepting continued unsustainable casualties. The long-term implications extend to Russia's position as a military power on the global stage. The Soviet Union and later Russia maintained international influence based primarily on military capability and the willingness to employ force. The repeated demonstration that Russian ground forces can be systematically destroyed by a much smaller military using superior technology and tactics fundamentally undermines this foundation of Russian power. Nations that previously feared Russian military intervention must now recalculate whether that fear remains justified. Only time will tell whether Russia can develop responses to these new battlefield realities. But the 48 hours in Donbas suggest that the era of Russian military dominance through numerical superiority has ended. The future belongs to the side that can most effectively integrate artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, and precision weapons into coherent operational concepts. Ukraine has demonstrated mastery of this integration. Russia has demonstrated primarily its ability to feed soldiers into a meat grinder that operates with industrial efficiency. The 48 hours of hell that Ukrainian forces inflicted on Russian personnel in the Donbas represents more than a tactical victory or even an operational success. It marks a fundamental shift in the character of this war and potentially in modern warfare itself. Russia launched an offensive with 45,000 troops expecting numerical superiority to produce breakthrough. Instead, Ukrainian forces eliminated one-third of that force in 2 days while suffering minimal casualties themselves, demonstrating that technology and tactics have made traditional mass infantry offensives obsolete against a well-prepared defender equipped with modern systems. The artificial intelligence revolution in warfare is not coming in some distant future. It arrived in the Donbas on March 28, 2026, and it killed 15,000 Russian soldiers in 48 hours. What are your thoughts on this technological transformation of warfare and its implications for future conflicts? Do you think traditional military powers can adapt to these new realities, or will we see continued catastrophic defeats for forces that rely on outdated mass infantry tactics? Don't forget to share your thoughts on this topic in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like our video. The Donbas massacre may mark the beginning of a new era where artificial intelligence and autonomous systems determine battlefield outcomes more than human courage or numerical advantage. At TGN, we will continue to examine every development in this rapidly evolving conflict and the broader transformation of military affairs it represents. Presented by TGN. Thank you for choosing us.